the perspective of UNAIDS, what you think about the emerging issues surrounding sexual and reproductive health and rights related issues in this time of COVID-19.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to be with you, and I apologize I was not able to join in person. I think the situation of young people in Uganda, as I've been listening, is very much along the lines of what the young people have been saying and the speakers have been saying. We work very closely with, for example, UNIPA, and I think we were even together a couple of weeks ago at their launch of the Mr. and Miss White class. A lot of what they do is very much along the lines of what we at UNAIDS really advocate and we at the United Nations advocate. You know, Uganda has the second youngest population in the world. I think second only to Niger, which means that the number of young people that are facing these issues are quite significant, and pretty much they're the bulk of the population. And that is why we feel it's so important to make sure that the young people are at the center and programs are really responding to the needs of young people as equal partners and hand in hand with the other stakeholders. So I really appreciate this program. I think you guys are doing a really great thing. Thank you.
Amazing. Dr. Gekonyo, we are also getting information that some 3.9 million young girls globally are risking their lives during unsafe abortions. So I would like to know what you're doing as UNAIDS to actually advance sexual and reproductive health information and services to these young people to save their lives.
Thanks very much for that. Within the UN, we have several partners, several UN agencies that are taking the lead on this area in partnership with government, in partnership with civil society, and most critically in partnership with the young people themselves and their caregivers, their guardians, their parents. One of the things that we've been advocating very strongly is the need for education in schools. In other words, sexuality education in schools. We feel that when young people are informed and empowered early enough, they are able to make the right decisions. We also empower or we also advocate for young people to have services, to have access to services. For example, the work that's being done within in partnership with others around youth-friendly services, and by that being truly youth-friendly services. And they're actually quite effective, and they have a good track record. The other thing that we know from research is that when young people have information, they make the correct decision. They don't go out and necessarily take risk. It's been shown that they actually do use the information to help themselves, to support themselves, and to support each other. Because young people will get information, and it's just better if they get it from a credible source.
And what challenges have you encountered as UNAIDS while trying to advance these measures to help extend these services to these young people?
I think there is a degree of concern that if young people receive information, they will misunderstand it, or they will go out and engage in the wrong behaviors. Whereas that has not been proven by research. So some of the challenges is just assuring stakeholders that this is the right thing to do, and to inform young people, to allow and create the space for them to have their questions answered, not to be seen like it's in a bad way. But these are young people who are looking for information, and that information should be made available as extensively as possible, and it should not be seen as if they are about to do a bad thing. The other thing that I would say is that a lot of the challenges is because the adults don't often have the skills on how to communicate with young people. So the relationship is not balanced enough where both sides are comfortable.
Right.
So it's usually a very awkward discussion, and we try to advocate for the need also for caregivers to get the skills they need so that the conversation is also comfortable for them and they're also informed.
And Dr. Gekonyo, here comes the $64,000 question. How best can we ensure meaningful youth participation during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, the young people who are talking were already talking about what they did already. They simply took the matters in their own hands. And that is, to me, the beauty of young people.
Right.
They're innovative, they're creative, they're uninhibited. They just go and they start doing those things, and then the rest of us kind of catch up, in surprise. So how to create a space for them is to create the leadership opportunities for them, to fund them, in particular to fund them, to mentor them, to give them legitimate space at the table, not as tokenism, but truly as partners. We've got a number of programs that we are funding as UNAIDS, but for us, just like we see children in our own homes, I'm a mother, just like I anticipate and I expect that I can have a strong conversation and trust my son. I feel it should be the same way that the adults also, many of them already do this, but they can trust their children, trust other young people, and stand and give them the opportunity hand in hand.
And Dr. Gikonyo, in the 25 years of trying to advance sexual and reproductive health and rights, would you say that we are registering a downward slant, or are we doing better?
I think it's kind of neutral, is what I would say. I would say there's been a little bit of movement forward, but not the speed at which it would be needed for the young people in Uganda to truly get empowered and get informed. And therefore, that is why by the time young people are, young women especially, by the time they are by the time they are 24, half of them have already experienced physical or sexual violence. But part of it is maybe because they have not been trained or socialized on how to say no to sex without eliciting a negative response. And likewise, the men. They have not been trained or socialized to be able to accept no. So we have made some progress, but we still have some very daunting statistics. We were doing a survey with Nafofanu, and there's still a lot of needs to be met for young people.
And how has COVID-19 made the situation worse?
Well, first of all, COVID-19, just like the young people were saying, it locked up everybody. One of the most difficult things that we learned was the lack of food, that young people didn't have food, not everywhere, but there was a lot of food shortages, particularly in urban areas where people do not have gardens and space to grow. So food was a big problem. For people living with young people living with HIV, access to medicine was a huge problem. And I think it still continues to be. The other one was lack of information and the need for someone to talk to understand. For young girls, there was issues around even hygiene products, sanitary pads and things like those. Certainly for, in general, the whole thing around even soap, running water, all the things that we were being told about COVID that we need to do. Young people were trying to do them, and they were also having as difficult a challenge as many other people.
Doctor, before I let you go, do you believe that involvement of the young people in the decision-making processes can help us deal with some of the challenges that have come about as a result of these sexual, reproductive, and health services and rights?
Absolutely. I believe that putting them at the center and then putting them as equal partners, i.e. we listen with them, we listen to them, they listen to us, and we have a dialogue.
Right.
I think that is the best combination because honestly, young people have a lot of ideas and they are incredibly resilient, incredibly innovative.
Yeah.
And I think we should use that, we should harness that energy and optimize the services for them.
Dr. Karusa, thank you very much. He is the UNAIDS Country Director. We'll get back to you on the issue of recommendations on the sexual and reproductive health and rights. We'll be right back to you.
Thank you.
All right. Let me also bring in a new entrant, that is Comfort. Comfort is the peer educator at the Sexual Reproductive Health Uganda. Comfort would like to know, how has COVID-19 affected you and members of your community during this period?
Thank you you so much about that.
Yes.
I'm so honored to be here to represent West Nile region.
Good to have you. How are people in Western Uganda, West Nile?
Very fine.
I was also reading some document and they were saying that the young people, especially in Karamoja, have been so marginalized because they don't even have information in that regard. They lack access to information. But in your own experience, Eyotaru, how have you been grappling under this COVID-19 pandemic and the members of your community?
You know, when the pandemic broke out, people, it seemed like it was going to be a one day or 2 days thing.
Yeah.
People didn't see it come that it's going to be forever.
I remember
Now
people are saying by July,
the lockdown
back
will
to
lift.
normal. Yes.
Not knowing that each day, each month
Yes.
that went on, the thing wasn't.
Yes.
Until it began claiming lives, people became serious.
So you're in northern Uganda.
I'm in West Nile.
You're in West Nile when it broke. Tell us, how did
I
you
was
grapple?
in Kampala.
Yeah.
The day the lockdown was put, I traveled to Arua.
You traveled.
Yes.
So tell us your experience in Arua.
On the side of the youth, people took it for granted at first, until it began affecting them socially and economically. People were lacking very many things that they needed. Crisis in the goods we had, everything went expensive. People are failing to access most of the services we were given. Okay? Now it came on the side of the youth. Most of the youth in my community, became unruly. If you look at the whole lockdown and the pandemic thing, people were looking at it like it was a burden to them. People wanted to be set free. They didn't understand that the government was trying to put measures to protect them from getting this infection. In my area, the crime rates increased. That was the one thing I noticed. People were idle, gambling went high, drug abuse, and the teenage pregnancies I've been talking about here. Many girls have been registered pregnant on those issues and all that. If you look at the youth who are not educated, those who struggle to put food on their tables and all that, the unemployment rates went high. Because we're in a Uganda where we earn and feed, okay? That's what most youth used to do. Especially in Arua, they engage in businesses, most of the small hawker businesses and all that. So when the lockdown thing was all over the country and all that, it affected them in their businesses. People became idle, theft rates went high,
I see.
and all that.
And also we got some information from Iganga. A family sold their daughter for only 50,000 Uganda shillings.
Because they wouldn't afford.
50,000 because they were so poor, so they decided, okay, this 50 will help us make ends meet. Is this Kala story reminiscent with what is happening in Arua and West Nile?
Yes, from the few clients I've been encountered with, I had one, she got married actually because she felt that man would take care of her. Her family wasn't providing to her. Was that right? It wasn't. This was a ongoing child, and she had ruined her future.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you look at the young girls, as I talk right now, most of the youth who have been working with are pregnant. Most of those girls are pregnant. The question is, are they going back to school?
No.
Why no? I ask myself that question every day. Look at this. Until it's your mother or your sister or a daughter to you, so close to you that has gotten pregnant, and you realize that this person has to go back to school. That question, I'm posing it back to the ministry. Okay? If you look at in the Western region again, we had school dropouts. In those rural areas, of course, education went on media. It became digital, which most people would not afford. Most of the youth down there don't even know what is going on. You find a village where people have to gather next to a radio to listen to the education programs going on.
And that is dangerous because we are talking about COVID-19 that loves those, small, big, or small and big
That was another
concentrations.
problem, yes. So you realize those people who can't afford to be on media or to get these education services are lagging behind. It's people who have the TVs, who have the radios to access, who are actually moving forward. It's affecting most of the youth. So which makes them think they have to drop out of what? Of school, which is very dangerous to them again. Now again on the school dropouts, it has also led to an increase in crime rates. What I've noticed in Arua, as curfew time is approaching actually, it's when the youth are getting out. They take it for granted. They look at it and like they're making fun with the police
the
to run
district
around.
task force in all this? Don't they enforce the COVID-19 rules?
Right now, if you go to the prisons,
Yeah.
most of the young people are actually imprisoned from Arua because they're gotten in curfew time and doing funny things and all that, so they're arrested, which is already affecting them, okay? You're going to be locked down in prison. Of course, when school opens, you're not going to come out and go to school. Those are the challenges I've seen there. Then people have been having problems accessing sexual reproductive health services for the youth. That's why we have a project called YCR that has been running. It has phased out now. We are taking all the services to the youth out there. We give them the family planning services. I know it's something wrong to do it at times, but we take it for those who really need it because they cannot access to come to the centers to get these services. So we go out to them and sensitize them not only about the SRH packages, but even the corona outbreak. It has been going on. I'm so proud to say that UNIPA is part of it.
Yes.
We have Kodiad, and we have this that is hosting us right now, SRH Alliance.
NMG is also part of it. Go ahead. Go ahead, yes.
So I've been having those outreaches, reaching out, creating total awareness. Right now as I talk, our youth also having those dramas, the drama, they make skits, they do radio programs, just to show people out there that this pandemic is real, the COVID-19 is real, trying to educate the youth.
So besides the economic consequences of this COVID-19 pandemic, you're telling us the biggest problem within this West Nile was low information proliferation.
Yes.
What about the internet? Couldn't they get this information on the internet? Is there low proliferation too?
Not everybody has that access to the media.
I see.
That's one challenge I saw. Okay, they may have the phones, but they have the analog phones, not the digital ones.
Yes.
So they don't get all that information.
So you have a situation where some people do not even know there is COVID-19.
They do know, but they don't know the impact. All they know is there is corona. All what they need to do, they don't know. There is SOPs to follow. They really don't know about
So
that.
the viewer who is watching right now would like to know, how has Eyotaru been able to cope and your family during this pandemic?
I, as Eyotaru, the lockdown found all of us at least when we're all home. At least it may be a little bit responsible. And to carry out more research on what is actually happening. You know, when you get informed, it's better for our lives. As Daphne, how I've helped my families each time I'm out, because I move and I work in a health center, I'm able to take for them the information that I got from out. And at least I make sure they watch news every time to get updates about how far corona has reached and all that. Down in the community, we have advocated for people to get all these sensations. Like we've been having those outreaches we take into the communities with the help of the VHTs. You know the VHTs?
Yes.
They offer services in the community levels. So we bring them in on board, we train them, they go out there and spread
These are the village
information.
health teams.
Yes.
Right. So let me also bring in Brenda Bonabana. She is the guild minister, right, for PWDs at MOOC. Would like to know, how have you helped your peers to cope with this COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, thank you so much. We have really done a lot. Me as a person and my other colleagues, and at the same time, organizations, specifically NGOs. First of all, we have really done awareness creation through these advocacy programs. For example, this TV show, we are really creating awareness, and people out there, the young people, maybe with disabilities or without, they're really able to watch and see what is happening in the country. And at the same time, through online and offline measures. For example, I personally, I used to post each and every day on my Facebook account. So that means those who are my friends or those who are following me, they will be able to read. Yes, I'm sure not everyone will be getting interested in what I'm posting, but at least a small percentage or a bigger percentage, at least they will read and see what they're supposed to do. And then at the same time, we have really educated the friends, community, and all that. What are they supposed to do? Washing the hands, not touching the soft parts, all that. And volunteering. Of recent, I've been invited to join the YAM, Youth Action Movement at Reproductive Health Uganda, and I realized these people are doing a great work. They're surely doing well. I thank Mr. Muhammad, who really introduced me to this program. It was really so good.
Yes.
And I felt I had a responsibility to also join, because when I reached there, in the group there was nothing like disability inclusion. So me being there, it really helped me a lot, because now I'm bringing in issues to do with disability. So at least it is synced in, and we are really doing well. And then donations. Yes, as a person, I do not have money because I'm still a student, but at least the little I had, I shared it during the lockdown. First of all, I collaborated, I partnered with a charity, Love Charity. It is led by Mr. Isaac. Mr. Isaac, wherever you are, Kusasira, thank you so much.
He's watching.
Yeah, he's watching. Thank you so much for the good work we did during the lockdown, because he used to post on Facebook, he gets donations, and then he calls me, Brenda, how many people with albinism do you know that are really lacking food in this, in around Kampala? And I got the whole list. I called, and then we got their locations and we delivered food.
Of course, Brenda, we are talking about the young people at the center of the COVID-19 response. And of course, we cannot shy away from talking about people with disabilities being on these national task forces. Now, their absence on the task force, has it made it difficult to assess the needs of people with disabilities during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Absolutely, yes. Because if you find the task force, there is no one who is there to air out the views of persons with disabilities. It is really hard for them to come out and say, it is so hard to speak for us, because they do not know specifically what we are going through. It's me who will tell them when I go under the sun to walk a distance to go and get a sunscreen, of which I do not have money to buy it. It will be hard for them to feel what I really feel.
So they are watching now, Brenda. What are the other needs for persons with disabilities?
There are so many needs.
Go ahead. Break them down.
Let me break them down. First of all, different categories of disabilities have different needs.
Go ahead.
One, albinism, our source of life, the sunscreens. We all know that the sunscreens are being taxed when they're imported in Uganda. So if the government can really remove the taxes, or if they can also make sure they produce these sunscreens in Uganda,
yes,
maybe we can easily access them. Because right now we get small donations, and of which we cannot reach each and every person with albinism in Uganda. There are so many people with albinism in Uganda, so we cannot reach each and every person. And then secondly, when I go maybe to another, there are so many, like in regards to albinism, we have discrimination and stigma in every aspect of life, employment, social, and everything. And when we go to other categories, maybe if we go to physical disability, you'll find it is very hard for people with physical impairments to access these health centers. Yes, there might be health centers and maybe the services are there, but there is no way people are going to access. You find someone using a wheelchair, there is no ramp, there is no lift. The health service providers are in storage buildings, so it is very hard for people to access those services. When it comes to people with hearing impairment, some use captioners and others use interpreters. Yes, they'll go to the health centers, assume the services are there. You'll find they are going to find challenges on how to communicate with the health providers, and maybe they just look at each other, because the other one doesn't know sign language, this one only uses sign language, and maybe this person is not educated, he cannot write. So how are you going to communicate to them that you need this and this and the other? So that is a very big challenge.
Indeed. So, Brenda, what coping mechanisms do you recommend for these young people living with disabilities during this COVID-19 pandemic?
On the side of the youth or on the side of?
The young people living with disabilities.
Okay. What I can say is that in any form we have gotten the information, let's say you have, let's say I've been able to read and the other one has not been able to read, we can try to help out. If I've read, then I tell this one who cannot read. If I have, if I know sign language, I can disseminate the information into sign language and maybe post. That would be better. And if maybe government can work with NGOs, maybe the individual persons with disabilities, for them to be included in decision making. Because if you find that it will be so hard if these young people with disabilities are not included, then their needs won't be provided.
Brenda Bonabana is the Guild Minister for People with Disabilities at MOOBS. Let me also bring in Mr. Y Plus Ambassador, that is Mr. Senyonga Michael. He is from the Uganda Network of Young People Living with HIV and AIDS. We are talking about recommendations moving forward. What coping mechanisms do you recommend for people living with HIV out there?
Oh, thank you so much. The very first thing is people should agree of their status. Once you agree of your status, that is the best weapon ever, because we are all what we are today because we agreed the status.
Get tested.
Get tested, get to know what you are, and then if you're positive, start the medication. I myself have begun the Overcome AIDS clubs, Overcome clubs in schools. And these clubs we are looking at overcoming. If you're not positive, then overcome and remain negative forever. If you're positive, continue overcoming, continue taking your drugs and overcome, suppress the virus. We overcome this issue of saying pregnant mothers should not go back to school. Parents, please take back these children to school. They can still have a chance to study even after even after delivering their children. They can still study, they can still get to school and attain that future which they needed. Teachers, please create a safe environment for the young people in schools. Young people living with HIV, young people who have gotten pregnant, please create a safe space for them, such that when they come back to school, they are engaged everywhere.
Even the campaigns to stop stigma and discrimination.
Yes. The other day in schools we are running, and we are coming against this thing of writing in schools that AIDS kills. Yes, we know AIDS kills, but not HIV. There is a difference between HIV and AIDS. So as an ambassador, I'm calling upon the government to engage young people in decision making. Papa says, I myself have been an ambassador, but I've never even met the parliamentary HIV AIDS committee. I don't know who they are. But this is what we would need as young people.
What about the young people in rural areas who have no information whatsoever? They do not have a gadget or a phone through which they can get this information from the internet. What advice do you have for such a group of people?
Thank you so much. As an ambassador, I'm looking at creating engagements down to the grassroots level. As Uganda Network, we've done that surely. In every district, we have a network of young people living with HIV. And then that network should have sub-counter networks. And the sub-counter networks are looking at village networks. We are running that, and we are praying that all our funders and sponsors should support me and should support us all, because I'm running this to ensure that at village level, we have committees of young people living with HIV. I strongly know that these people will convey information.
Of course, Brenda Bonabana said the tax on sunscreen should be removed. Would you advocate for the removal of tax on PEP?
Yes.
Post-exposure prophylaxis.
It's obviously post-exposure and then pre-exposure as well, because our friends, there's female sex workers, do not access PrEP just because it is too expensive. So they should put up with that tax.
But they explain to our viewer what PEP is. They might not know.
Oh yes, PEP is a post-exposure prophylaxis, and it is given to a person who has contracted into unsafe sex. Unsafe sex, not safe sex. Unsafe sex with a person maybe you think is having HIV, and it is given in 48 hours, not less than 48 hours. So, but of course, accessing it has been a problem today, because once you go and ask for PEP, then they will start pinning at you. It seems you are in sex. It seems you're a sex worker. It seems this and that. But
instead of pointing fingers, help these people.
But instead of pointing fingers, help these people. And then secondly, if you're a victim of the circumstance, please go and access it. Go to a nearby facility, ask for PEP, and we're there to support you with PEP.
All right. Michael Senyonga is from the Uganda Network of Young People Living with HIV and AIDS. We also have Eotaru Duffin. She's a peer educator at the Reproductive Health Uganda. What coping mechanisms, Eyotaru, do you have for the young people in your community, especially Arua? What should they be doing to overcome the stress being brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic and so forth, low access to SRHR? What should they be doing?
Thank you so much about that. I, as Daphne, would recommend that all these young people should be reached out to. I feel they do some of the dubious things they do because of lack of information.
I see.
They have to be given the information about the COVID-19.
And the tools.
And the tools of how we're going to prevent it and how we're going to rule it out. Because it has come to stay. It's not fading out any soon. And then, we should teach our young people how to make money. Not to expect money.
How to make clean money.
How to make clean money. They're out there thinking the government is going to come out one time and distribute money to the youth, which will not happen.
But that's because the government has promised.
But
so the young people should understand, I think, like you say, it goes back to information.
Yes.
As the government works on the various avenues to bring you the money or the programs, what can you do in the interim to ensure that you sustain yourself? Go ahead, Eyotaru.
Down in my community, I've seen young girls doing very many things. They engage in craft activities.
Yes.
You have seen this craft shoe, the craft sandals they make. Yeah. It's all over my community. And they're making money out of it. One person who gets so busy like that can't think of the negative things that COVID-19 is bringing all about. The major thing is they should get information.
And the potential dropouts?
Of school?
Yes, the potential young people who risk being dropping out of school. What advice do you have for them?
Those ones there, there's only one advice I'm going to have for them. They have to continue with school. Having, a brighter future is when you have an education.
Yes.
Without an education in Uganda of today, it's useless. Okay? They have to, that's why they need the information that they have to go back to school. We have UPA schools, we have USA schools that support people who can't only afford school fees. Yes.
Eyotaru Daphne is essentially telling you, we all know the economic devastation that has been wrought onto the world by the COVID-19 pandemic, but that is only this one part of the story. You should actually go out of your way to ensure that you continue with your livelihoods unabated. My name is Romeo Busiku and you're still watching NTV Uganda. We're having this conversation that is largely centered around the role of young people during this COVID-19 pandemic. Young people at the center of this fight. And your meaningful youth participation has been one of the focal points. Michael, how best can we ensure meaningful youth participation in this COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you so much. When we talk of meaningful youth participation, there is participation that is not meaningful. But when we talk of meaningful youth participation, that means young people should be brought on board. Young people should be engaged at the National COVID-19 Task Force. There should be a young person. And that young person should have subcommittees of the people living with disabilities.
Yes.
Pregnant mothers and so forth. And then to the district levels, young people should be inclusive as well. We are deriving for young people's inclusion at the district AIDS committees because they are not there. They are not there. I've got an opportunity that I happen to be one at my Kasese district AIDS committee. But then other places, there is no young person at that place. So we are not meaningfully engaged. So I pray that they should be engaged in every level of decision making. Let them be engaged whether in media, let them be engaged whether at the COVID-19 task force, let them be, because once they are engaged, then their voices are heard. Today, the reason as to why young people are all over cars, are all over shouting here and there, it is because they have nothing to do. But how about if they are engaged in various projects? Because today, if a young person comes out and leads a certain big project in the country, then he's a role model to the others. But today, people who lead projects are the people who led projects yesterday. So, which is quite a very bad thing to us. But let young people be brought on board. Peers need peers. We need to engage our fellow peers as young people and let them come out to us as well.
Indeed. Eyotaru, we are also getting information that some 3.9 million young girls risk their lives undergoing unsafe abortions. What are the numbers in your community of Arua, and what recommendations would you have for these young people?
Thank you so much about that. Reproductive health as an organization, that's our area where we handle that.
Indeed. Go ahead. Expound.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Unsafe abortion, it's there in the community, only that those girls are not reached. I'm going to give a scenario. You're going to find a very young girl of 16 years who got herself pregnant, okay? Coming out to say she wants an abortion is going to be very hard. What these girls mostly tend to do, they go out there, maybe to the pharmacies and buy the whatever thing they're going to buy that is going to get that baby out. Some even go up to the extent of using herbals. The question is, that is very risky to the reproductive health. You're going to find a very young girl who comes to this facility after she has messed up her whole body. My urge to young girls out there is, we have family planning services for every category of people, okay? If you feel you're sexually active and there's some things you cannot handle, you can come to us. We have youth-friendly services. We have all SRH packages for all the youth and everybody out there. They should come to us and give them these packages so to avoid all those unsafe abortion acts that are carrying out there, because it's going to ruin their futures and all that. Though I'm not encouraging them to use the what? Family planning services, because it's going to make them grow ears, and they do. They engage into activities that actually it's supposed to be.
Yeah, let me also bring in Brenda Bonavana. We talk about sexuality education. Brenda, do you believe government has dropped the ball when it comes to sexuality education?
I do believe.
Why?
Like the way I said, information. I'm so much into the field of disability. Information is not disseminated in accessible ways, accessible forms. Still, Braille, you'll never find any information about sexuality in Braille. Like just I said, on TV, yes, there is an interpreter.
But in a small box.
But in a small box. Why not half of the screen?
Let's focus on sexuality education. Go ahead.
Yes. And then, just like I said before, communication. The health centers, they lack maybe interpreters or the guides. You know, disability, there are some disability forms where you find yourself you cannot do anything without extra help. So if you go to the health center, there is no ramp, there is no... So I think government should look into all these, and then they look for a way forward. And this also comes back to meaningless participation of youths with disabilities. If people with disabilities are included in decision making at each and every level, and then I think we can be good to go.
Of course, you have some parents who would prefer to give sexuality education to able-bodied children and not those with disabilities, because they do not believe at any point they'll be getting intimate with anyone. Don't you think this is discriminatory? And could it be the reason we are seeing so many cases of people with disabilities getting pregnant in that regard?
That is very true, because I personally, my dad told me I would rather go and marry another woman where I can get a girl who is dark-skinned, like who can bring in a man and they pay bride price and all that.
Colors.
You can imagine that. And that is your parent. Now, if your own parent can discriminate you to that extent, then what of the other person who is not even related to you? So it is kind of discriminatory to such things. So I urge your parents to accept, the moment you accept disability as part of you, then we shall be good to go, because discrimination is just because we are not yet accepted in the community. But if we are accepted, then I think we shall end discrimination.
Well, thank you, Brenda. Michael, let's talk about sexuality education in depth. Who should be at the forefront of championing this this sexuality education campaign? Who should be championing it? Should it be the teachers, the government, or the parents?
Thank you so much. This is a joint force. If we want to accomplish something big, then we need a joint force. Today, when the government is not in your favor, then you'll never derive something. And when the people are not in the favor of the government, then nothing will be done. So let the teachers come together and put up their mind together and support this. Let the government bring out this policy and introduce it through the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health. Then the Ministry of Gender too should come in as well. The Ministry of Justice should also involve, because for example, in these young mothers who have gotten pregnant, we need to hold accountable the perpetrators that have done that. So you find that when it comes to schools, teachers should come at the forefront. teachers should engage, and then young people themselves should come out and speak out on their behalf, because once young people remain silent, then these people may take it as a normal thing. So when young people come out and the teachers get together and the government gets together, then I believe something
So
will
it
work
is
out.
a concerted effort.
It is a concerted
Thank you, Michael.
effort.
At this opportune moment, allow me introduce that is Dr. Dina Nachiganda Busiku. She's the Assistant Commissioner, Adolescent and School Health Division at the Ministry of Health. Dr. Dina, good to have you again. We are expounding on some recommendations that would be very, very good to do away with some of the problems we are seeing as challenges towards sexual, reproductive and health and rights. What do you have for us?
Oh, thank you very much. And in regards to challenges, recommendations, I just want to say that young people, the government has you as a very big priority, and let's not assume that the government is not working for you. The government is working for you, and you're high on the government's agenda. And I just want to say that we are doing everything for young people and with young people. I also just want to say that at the Ministry of Health, we have a coordination body for all adolescents and young people in the country. And we have a sitting where most of our partners come. And recently we've engaged the young people with disabilities. So we hope that all the issues that came through this conversation can actually come through to the working group for the adolescents and young people. So in regard to my recommendations is, I want the young people listening in to know that you're part of all the processes that are going on, and it's also your role to take part. Come to the youth councils, come to the district task forces, even if you're not invited. I think that will be a good start. And to say that as schools open, we are really ensuring that there is a high level of surveillance at the different schools to ensure that we don't have the COVID spread through the schools at a very big, at a very fast speed. Also to say that at the schools, there are national task forces, school task forces, if we should call them, and we're encouraging the various schools to have young people, the students themselves, the student bodies on these task forces. So my recommendation to young people is you're part of the processes, come up and speak for yourselves. Don't say government, don't say this person. All of us are government, and you should always come up to air out your thoughts and your decisions on what you feel government should do for you. I just want to say that we continue to work with young people in everything that we are doing. And also we are working more strongly and more effectively with parents. Again, to say that we have to listen into the various elders in our communities. Now that we are at home, our parents are very key. And when we go back to school, our school administrators will be very key. So the recommendation is, let's get together to work together for the young people. And young people, please come out. Don't wait for Dr. Dina, for example, to call you. Call Dr. Dina. And if you're actively participating, then you'll see yourselves in the decision-making areas. So thank you very much. And I again say that government is working for young people, and young people are a very high priority for the government.
Dr. Dina, before you go, I wanted to know the recommendations from the Health Ministry with regards to law information proliferation in northern Uganda. What are you doing to extend informational services to those people in northern Uganda, and the issue of unsafe abortions? What are you doing to alleviate the same?
Okay. One, around unsafe abortions is, we all know that safe abortions are not legal in the country. So that is one stand for the government. Abortions are not legalized in this country. And if someone has an unsafe abortion that they've induced for themselves, government will still take care of this person as they come. And that means the health workers are capacitated to ensure that if you came in with an abortion that you've induced unsafely, we will not use you as an individual. We'll still take care of you to ensure that we mitigate all the side effects that you would have if you induced an abortion and it's unsafe. But we as government, we don't induce abortions, and our abortions are not safe. And in regard to mental health issues in northern Uganda, if I heard you well,
Information.
we have a division in charge of mental health at the Ministry of Health, and they are working closely together with all the other divisions at the Ministry of Health, including the School Health and Adolescent Health Division. And we have given out different messaging packages.
All right.
For the different ailments that we hope young people may get as they move along their path.
All right, Dina.
And what the now doing is to ensure that these messages that we are giving out on regard to mental health are translated to the various local languages in the country. I know for sure that mainly most of the messages now are in English and some in Luganda, but we've increasingly known that not everyone speaks English or Luganda. So we are working with the different health educators in the districts to translate these messages, said that they are specific for the areas that we are in the different regions in the country. So hopefully once this is done, then the reach to the young people will be bettered, ensuring that they can understand the messages, but also their caretakers and the parents can also read and kind of do their role as parents in order to ensure that the mental health challenges of these young people are met.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Dina Nachiganda Busiku. She is the Assistant Commissioner, Adolescent and School Health Division at the Ministry of Health. Thank you very much. At this opportune moment, allow me also introduce the Country Director, UNAIDS, that is Dr. Gikonyo Karusa. Dr. Gikonyo, we're talking about recommendations moving forward. What are some of those from UNAIDS?
Thanks very much for this, and I also want to really appreciate very much this program. It's very, very important, and I do appreciate NTV for having hosted it. I have just one or two things I would like to say. First of all, is to urge young people to avoid getting COVID. Wear your mask and wear it properly, not on the chin. Wash your hands all the time. And avoid crowds, watch your distance, 6 feet, because it's really important that young people avoid this disease. They can avoid it, and even though it may be difficult in some circumstances, they should not take it for granted. So that's one message I would say. The second message that I would say is for young people who are living with HIV, make sure you have enough supply of medicine. Make sure you have at least a 3-month supply. If you're running out, if you're on your second month supply, go and get the refill at that point. If you're on your 1-month supply, go and get. Don't wait until the last minute. A lot of young people got caught last time because they didn't have adequate medicine. The third thing I would say is for young people who do not have HIV, protect yourself. Don't get this disease. We've now got the clash of two pandemics. We've got the pandemic on COVID.
Right.
We've still got the pandemic on HIV. So let's just make sure that young people protect yourself, be active out there, educate other people, get proper information, and be part of the solution. So those are the 3 things that I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gikonyo Karusa, the UNAIDS Country Director, and special thanks to the Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Alliance for having put this show together, and also the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. Special thanks to Michael Senyonga. Special thanks to Mr. James Ochen, the Vice President of the Youth Advisory Committee under the Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Alliance Uganda, where he represents Reach a Hand Uganda. Special regards to you, Mr. James Ochen. He was here in studio, but he was his seat was taken over by Eotaru Duffin. She is a peer educator at Reproductive Health Uganda. We also had a very fun conversation with you, and also Brenda Bonabana, the Guild Minister from MOOBS, representing persons with disabilities, and our online panelists, Dr. Dina Nachiganda Busiku and Dr. Karusa Gikonyo. Many thanks to our online viewers and those at home for having ensured that you watch this show from 11 up to now. My name is Romy Busiku. I'm afraid we've come to the end of this conversation that was largely centered on the role of young people during this COVID-19 pandemic and access to sexual and reproductive health and rights in that regard. Have yourselves a blessed day.